Hey, this is Harper Boy Terry from the band Greet Death, and you are listening to The New Scene.
Hello everybody, and welcome to The New Scene. I'm your host Keith, and we are back with another brand new episode. And on the show this week, I'm very happy to announce we have the return of Alan Epley of Shiner and the Life and Times. Shiner have just released an incredible new LP. It's called Believe You Me, and we discuss the making of that record, the making of their 2020 record Schadenfreude. We get the scoop on Alan's other band, The Life and Times. We discuss Alan's 2023 solo LP called Everything, Alan's other two-piece band, BirdHands, his podcast, Third Gear Scratch. The amount of good things that have come from Alan is just, it can't even be counted. And I'm very excited to have him back on the show. We'll be discussing all that very shortly, but first, here's how you can support The New Scene. Rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have a main channel with full video episodes and a clips channel with clips from select episodes. We have shirts for sale at our store at Death Wish Inc. Pick one up. It's a great way to support the show. And you can follow us on social media at New Scene Pod. Also, don't forget to support Iodine Recordings. There's a lot of great releases out from Iodine Recordings right now. Pick up Stretch Armstrong's Free at Last. That's the 20th anniversary reissue. This is on vinyl for the first time ever. Pick up Feel the Teeth from the Casket Lottery. It's a must-listen LP and one of my favorites of the year. Pick up Life on the Moon by Modern Life is War. That's the highly anticipated new LP from Modern Life is War. Pick up Life in Parallel from Hundreds of AU. That's another one of my favorite records of the year. And if you're into that classic screamo post-hardcore sound, you're going to love it. I just listened to it again this past weekend. Sign up for the newsletter. You'll find out about everything first. And you can follow the label on Instagram at Iodine Recordings. And say hello to our sponsor for the month of October, Evil Greed. In addition to their online store, Evil Greed offers tour merch, merch handling, and logistics services for tons of bands. They also offer merch and distribution solutions for bands and record labels in Europe and the UK. Evil Greed has a carefully selected roster of artists and labels in their online store. They offer very reasonable worldwide shipping rates specifically to the UK and the USA. All right, so let's see what we've got going on at evilgreed.com. We've got featured music, AFI, the new AFI LP, Silver Bleeds the Black Sun, Blood Incantation, Starspawn LP, Speed. I've heard a lot about Speed lately, All My Angels, 12-inch. We've got a whole set of new merch from Balance and Composure. We've got new merch from Frontierer. We've got new repress LPs from Frontierer, Orange Mathematics. Oh, that looks like it's sold out. We've got American Nightmare, Year 1 25th Anniversary LP, up for pre-order. Make sure you check out the featured merch and featured music sections at evilgreed.com. There's new stuff up there every week. Sign up for their newsletter, and you can follow them on Instagram at evil_greed. Okay, so check back in with me in segment 3. We'll do a wrap-up of the conversation with Alan. There's big news happening right now. Ink and Dagger are back. They've announced 3 reunion shows in Philadelphia. They've got a box set. They've got vinyl represses. Very exciting news. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about new music that's come out lately. We'll cover everything. But right now, we are going to speak to Alan Epley of Shiner. Enjoy. All right, we are here now with Alan Epley. Alan, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me. It is a pleasure, of course.
Yes, Alan, it's great to have you back here. There's a lot going on. Shiner is putting out Believe You Me, the new record that's coming out September 26th. And everyone, I have heard the advance, and you're going to be very happy. I know I am. And Shiner's got some tour dates coming up. There's plenty to talk about, Alan, but first I want to ask you, how are you doing today?
I am doing well. It is always an up and down kind of thing, you know. As an artist, you're living day to day, kind of. But I'm well. My wife dislocated her hip on the mountain, on a ski mountain, 3 years ago, and it's been hell past 3 years. And so she fell recently and had to get a hip replacement. So that's what I've been in recently. My life has been kind of revolving around taking care of her right now as she's convalescing after this. But the good news is she's doing great.
I'm glad to hear that. That's wild because I listened to our last conversation in preparation of this one, and the ski accident had just happened.
Holy shit.
That's you mentioned that. So she fell and had to get a whole replacement?
She fell and re-injured it. It was it was due anyway. Just even from just like from the original dislocation, and just it was time. And this doctor is amazing. And he does all the bears and bulls and everybody else. And Lady Gaga, apparently, he's done some work on. He's kind of a rock star. So I'm glad that Pam's doing better. And she's just it's been a rough road though. So I've had a lot of shit that I wanted to be excited about, but it's tempered by the realities of my situation. And I'm I love her. So.
Yeah. So I guess no more skiing, huh?
Not for her. I still love it. I still got game.
I went skiing one time, and I'm actually surprised I didn't get really hurt because it was like the fake snow. So it was basically one big block of ice you were skiing down. And I went down a big hill I probably shouldn't have gone down, and I took a tumble at one point, but nothing major happened. But I could have easily ripped something or broken something. It's scary now that I think back on it.
It's easy you can definitely destroy a knee or a hip or something else. I've gotten to the point, I've had, it was just kind of gonzo getting started skiing with my dudes up by Louisville, because I grew up in Louisville, and we would go to this mountain just about an hour north called Paoli Peaks, Indiana, and then we would go there overnight and go drink beer and smoke dope and go skiing all night. And so that was how I learned. It was the gonzo way. They were just like, follow me, and so I did it. And so I still love it.
I see. Is that a home studio you have there? Is that where all the home magic happens?
This is where it happens. This is my office where that's all of it, whatever I'm writing for or just, happen to be recording on or whatever.
Yeah, I see your pedal board behind you, and I'm getting triggered by the image of the DL4. Is that the older model or a newer one?
This one, that's the new one. That's the MK2. That's the Mark II.
Okay. Do those work better? Because I've gone through 2 or 3 of the old ones, and they keep breaking. So I got the MK2 hoping that it would last more than a month. How is it?
I'm a fan of these pedals, and they're like tanks until they break. And I was able to fix it. This one's good. I do like the Mark II, although I feel like it's got too many gee whiz features that I'll never need or never really use. I really just need it to loop longer than the 14 seconds it used to. And I need it to just give me those basic sounds so I can kind of manipulate. And, but I like it. It seems, I've had, 4 or 5 of the Mark I's, and I ended up fixing a few of them by replacing or taking the EEPROM chip. You have to take it apart, dismantle it, and then you pop this little EEPROM chip out and you put it back in, reseat it, put it back together, and it all works. So that was the fix. So it is a real thing.
I need to learn to do that. I have 2 at my house right now that are not functioning, but I've got the new one, and that's going okay right now.
Right. But the springs and all the buttons and everything are working, right? It's conked out.
It just doesn't power on. Yeah.
I bet it's that EEPROM chip, man. I'm telling you, like, YouTube it up. That's the answer.
I'm going to do that. You know what? Yeah, I've got nothing to lose. If it's broke, if I break it more, who cares?
Exactly.
Well, there's a lot going on. A lot has happened, Alan, since I spoke to you 3 years ago. It feels like a lifetime, but you know where I want to start? The last Shiner album, Schadenfreude. Now, this came out right before the whole world shut down, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Right at it. Yeah.
What was it, like February? Everything shut down in March officially. When did that come out? Like February or?
No, we staggered it to come out when the world was absolutely in shock in May. So no one really registered that it came out. Although it did make its money back, and we made money on it even without even touring on it until later. But yeah, it kind of happened in a vacuum a little bit, and it was a bit of a bummer. But everyone else is in the whole thing in this thing too, so that softens the blow some. And people were digging what we were doing in the kind of virtual concerts. We made a live video of us playing at the record bar, on the floor of the record bar, and that was fun and probably dangerous because the band wasn't masking up at that time, and it was like late 2020, summer 2020. We were just like, fuck it, and that was fun. That was good to be able to do, but it was, the whole thing was really a bit of a bummer. That's all I can say is, but just try not to make too much because everybody else was in the exact same thing, and hundreds of thousands of people died. So it's just a stupid record,
Yeah. Well, when did you start writing it? Like, how soon before it came out?
2018 was when I started picking at it. We did some shows to celebrate Lula Divinia coming out, and this was the third session of our kind of reunion shows. We did 2012, 2014, and 2017 for The Egg and Starless and Lula Divinia, respectively, our records. And then Josh said maybe it's time to either shit or get off the pot, and I thought maybe you're right. And my band, The Life and Times, had just put out a record in 2018, and we toured on that, or it was 2017 was the last record came out. And so it was kind of like time to either switch the page and do that for a minute, and to do Shiner. And we had the impetus, like, and how do you get started writing a record after you haven't been a band for so long, So, and everybody's style has changed, or so you think. So I just kind of did what I always did. I was just kind of get down here and start playing, making loops and play along with it and see what happens, And I like to just play guitar and to create. And sometimes it sucks. Like I would say most of the time, 70-30, it sucks over good, 75-25. And there was a couple of things that I was like, okay. And I played it for the guys and they were like, okay. And we got together and it kind of made sense for that. And we found a North Star in a couple of the tunes. One of them was Life is a Mannequin. And that one kind of like led us where we're supposed to go for this record. You know what I mean? For that record. And so that helped. That helped a lot, to kind of know where we were going,
And how was it writing together with everybody after all of that time? Because I remember when we spoke before, the Life and Time started up pretty soon after Shiner, and you said you wanted to stop fighting and just let the music happen in the Life and Times. Like, I guess it was easier, right, with that band than the last time you had written with Shiner. So how was it coming back to Shiner? Was everybody more open? Was it easier? Like, what was the vibe?
It really was. And we had mellowed with age, and we all really wanted to do it. And not that we didn't want to do it before, but we were so much younger. And the reason we were doing it now is because it was time to fucking rock, and we were just having a good time, and there was no reason to start fighting about little things. And it was easier, and all that other stuff got out of the way. And in fact, you have a hard time kind of remembering exactly what it was the problem. At 6 months into it, you remember a little bit, and you're just like, "Oh, that's right. I remember this." The little things. But when you start to realize what it was that was bugging you, or what the problem was, what the rub was, you handle things differently as a 40-year-old man or a 50-year-old man, as opposed to when we're 25 and 30. You know what I'm saying? We're much more hot-headed and much more confrontational, and now it's much more like, let's do this. We're all pulling, and so. Yeah, it went better just because I believe that even though the differences still are there, that we just handle it differently.
Right. And when I was younger, there was a lot of ego and just a lot of like, no, this or nothing, or it has to be this way or I'm walking, and all, like very dramatic kind of stuff like that.
Yeah.
But now being 43, if I was in that situation you were, and you see those little things pop up again, my instinct would not be to fight or have ego. It would just be to like talk about everything and be like, hey, I'm feeling this way. How are you feeling? Like, that's the wisdom that comes with age, I guess.
I think that is exactly it right there. You hit it. You nailed it. And I think there comes like what's added in is the humility of not having to always have your way. Like I used to really kind of push to have, the song's got to be this way, but I've come to realize that their input is so much more. And they've always had huge input on all of the records. You know, I'll be the seed writer, but every one of the songs started out way different and ended up at a much better spot throughout our entire careers. And I'll stand by that everything that they have added to the songs has always been great, and it's been the right move to have made, you know. But it also adds to have people involved in the writing process makes them care more. If it's all just your shit, then they're just doing your dance for you, and then it creates resentfulness. And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a good point. Like if you're just getting your way all the time, or you're orchestrating everything, the passion isn't going to be there. Because I've been in bands where I just play someone else's stuff and it's cool and I like the music, but it's not like when you come up with something and it's yours and you contribute it, you know?
100%. And I can honestly say that Shiner is very much a four-way pileup of personalities and instincts. And then we really did. When we write, we'll get together and kind of like work it out over 3 or 4 hours in the room. You know, I mean, I don't go in with finished things. You know, I don't go with. Sometimes I'll have something that has a little drums on it occasionally, but even that beat is not what gets used. So
yeah, and Shiner is one of those bands where I think every piece is important. There's the guitars, obviously. There's songs I can think of where it's like, oh, that bass line. There's songs I can think of where it's like, oh, that drum part. You know, I think every part is very important.
100%. I agree. I think we've really tried to really make that our the mission where nobody's just floating. Like Josh isn't really playing rhythm guitar, you know, like it's not how we do, you know, and I'm not really playing rhythm guitar. We all have 4 distinct parts. I think we got that kind of vibe from like Jawbox is really, and you know, it would be like much more Jawbox than it would be like say Smashing Pumpkins influence for us. Whereas James Iha's playing a lot of the rhythm parts, right? Maybe an occasional solo, but like, and then Billy gets to shred. We're not really shredders that way, and we don't really write parts in the way like you just double the bass line. And you know, occasionally, sometimes for effect, we will do that, or, you know, for a certain thing, but that's not the way you write. So we're much more influenced by 3 or 4 distinct parts, you know.
When you start to write a song, how does it typically work? I mean, what do you have your whole pedal board like behind you and just mess around with sounds until you come up with something interesting?
Yeah. Usually it'll come. The best stuff that I'm able to really build off of is when I'll have a loop and I'll be able to like it creates a song for me. Sometimes I'll put down just a few notes. I did this with Life and Times too, but especially with Shiner, I'll just do like a couple of notes. I'll just make it loop, and then I'll just write, see what kind of sound, what it does for me to hear that. It's like standing in a room playing with somebody, but you were the one who started the conversation. But then later on, it becomes something more after you play with it for a little while, you know? So that's really the conversation starter for me. Occasionally there's a drum beat or occasionally there's a lyric, but not usually. Some of the vibe for this record, for the newest record, I wanted to do something that reminded me of like Jane's Addiction, Ritual, Dillo, Habitual, just the flow of that record, just like the side 1 versus side 2 when you get into sides. But side 2 has this long kind of almost trippy kind of vibe to it. And we didn't quite get there, but it was kind of also a guiding force for me. on some of this.
Yes. Speaking of the new record, Believe You Me, I love it. You know, see, I came into Shiner later, so I don't have the history of the earlier records. Like I heard The Egg back in the day, and then I got really into Life and Times, and then I went back and listened to some of the old Shiner, and then I have the new records. So the new records are actually my favorites. You know, Schadenfreude and Believe You Me, I love and that happens a lot because I listen to a lot of bands that I haven't heard before because of the podcast. And I tend to like the newer stuff better because you go back and listen to something from like 30 years ago. You're like, oh, it really sounds like 30 years
30
ago.
years ago.
Yeah. Like Thrice is a good example. I didn't hear Thrice back in the day when they were blowing up. And then they re-recorded The Artist in the Ambulance, which is like a huge album for them.
Sure.
And I'm like, I like the newer one better. It sounds like more post-hardcore and less like pop punk. I like the newer one better. So
I get it. Yeah, I mean, I think that's accurate. I know that about a lot of bands too. I mean, you can look at Sunny Day Real Estate. The first record is great, but it doesn't sound great, and they didn't play great. I mean, it is a classic record, but it is that despite all of the other things, and it's an amazing record, but it's not because of the recording and it's not because of their playing. It's the song, but like as later on, the sound of the records got a lot more thought through and, well written, I think.
That's a great example. Yes. All right. Favorite Sunny Day record. What's yours?
How It Feels to Be Something On.
Yep. I'm going back and forth between that and Rising Tide. Right now I'm on Rising Tide. I think it's that, but I think what they became is even better than where they started, which is also classic.
100%. I mean, you're looking at grown men who've been playing for 15 years by that time together, and it was better. I mean, the other stuff made a huge dent and a huge impact, still resonating today, but I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know. I think the later stuff really is more impactful for me of those guys. But I am actually on that subject. I'm playing shows with those guys as a sub guitarist in the band next week.
In Sunny Day Real Estate?
In Sunny Day. I'm their third guitarist. His name is Greg Saran, and the normal backup for that guy is Jason Narducci, and I'm the sub of the sub. So when Jason Narducci can't do it, I'll fill in for that. So I'm the sub of the sub for the guitarist. So, yeah, you know what? It's a good gig, though. I'll take it.
Is it just going to be one?
Dudes. No, a few years ago, I did about 10 shows, and then a couple years ago, and then this is 2 shows. They're kind of fill in for this stuff. So there's a lot of work. I get to play the old stuff, and I get to play, obviously, the more recent stuff. And they put out a song when they speaking of their critiques of their early recordings, nobody in that band loved that early recording, I mean, not say they didn't love it. They know how powerful it is and what a big meteor it is. But they were things they wanted to do differently. And so they went and re-recorded it at London Bridge Studios in Seattle. And it's amazing. Came out last year, and they added a new song called Novum Vetus.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. So, but anyway, it's a lot of work to get to do that stuff, and pretty cool though. So nice.
Yeah. I didn't know you play with them. That's amazing. Now, how difficult is it for you to learn the set, to learn those songs, and how do you do it? What's your method?
Well, Greg has some guide videos where he shows this is this part and this is this part. And then you just kind of do, 50 hours of learning and prepping. Luckily, I did that in 2023 when I played with them last. So I knew I had about 16 of the tunes already, and I'm adding on about 5 for this. So it's just churning and burning, baby. You got to get in and learn it. It's like you just got to learn it. There's no quick fix way of learning. I don't use a chart. I don't chart it out on this kind of stuff. You got to learn it, or else you'll never learn it. If you keep going back to your chart, if you have your phone on something where you're going, oh, this time it goes 3 times or whatever, you'll never learn it. You just got to know the forms and the arrangements of the songs. And I sing backup in there too, and so it's a lot. It's a lot to take on, especially if it was all like the first 2 records. it would be easier because those are more simplistic. But when it got to the last two records, it gets a lot more prog rock, and especially, and I say that with all the love of prog rock because that's what I am. That's what I live and breathe. But Greg Saran is his parts are in particular very intricate and ornate, and he's usually redoing playing parts that were piano that he played piano on the record actually. So it's an amalgamation of things, and you're playing that on guitar. So it's pretty cool. And Greg's an amazing guy. He plays on American Idol. He plays with Lionel Richie. He's played with B-52s. He's been in these bands for like a long time. So, and millions of others, lots of others. Goo Goo Dolls, Joe Walsh, Don Felder. He's a touring session guy.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I just saw Sunny Day Real Estate earlier this year in Asbury Park. Still one of the best and most consistent live bands. So,
Great band. Swell bunch of fellas, too.
So, Believe You Me, when did we start writing? When did we start putting the new Shiner record together?
This was done in four very deliberate writing sessions. Paul Malinowski, our bass player, owns a studio in Kansas City called Massive Sound, and he is a really very talented engineer and producer and mixer. And he just had a really nice article in Tape Op magazine, Paul Malinowski, a nice feature that was overdue. But he's been talking to Larry Crane about that for a long time, the publisher and main writer. And so that was a big deal, but he had his studio set up, and I would come and Josh would fly in from LA. Jason, the drummer, and Paul, the bass player, both live in Kansas City. I live in Chicago. Josh lives in LA, the guitarist, Josh Newton. So we would all fly in or drive in, and we'd set aside 3 days every 4 months or something, every 3 months. And I would come in with these like little phone recordings that I had made, but they were only like 1 or 2 sections. And I would go back over here, and I will just kind of stand here and maybe have a beer, give myself some time to write over like a couple of weeks. So I'm not trying to jam out something right away. I kind of let it go organically. And then I'll just kind of like, oh, that's kind of cool. Make a little recording of it, a little phone recording, go back and listen to it, compile it. So before every one of the little sessions, I would come down there with 5 or 6 or 7 little snippets. And I usually knew which ones were not going to like fly and which ones might. But anyway, we'd go in there, we'd show up, I'd drive down there. We'd have a bunch of beers and Red Bull and pizza and all kinds of shit. And we just get in the studio and we would kind of listen through each of the little ideas. And we'd say, let's fuck with this. And then we go into the room, and everything we're playing is mic'd up already. So we're entering before we've even written a note, we're set up with really great sounds. Paul had been miking up Jason's kit immaculately. Everything was done. And so if we hit upon something, the reason to do this was because it was the most expeditious way to get real tracks. We didn't want to just write, make demos, and then come back and then have to really make the record. We wanted to make the record when we were doing it. So we came in and we would get in there and hash out one of these songs, and sometimes it would take 3 or 4 or 5 hours, and we'd have to we'd work on the arrangement just like you did in band practice for all the years before everybody started mailing their files to each other and see what you can do on this. And somebody sits in front of their computer for the while, then they send it back over to Joshua, and then Joshua puts down his tracks, and then they send it back over to Kylie, and she puts her parts down. And like, we all do this. Everybody's done this, and that's fine. It's a great way of writing. It's technology. It's amazing. It's great. But to stand in a room with people and to create shit is amazing. And you share energy, and you can hear it transferred onto the recording, because a lot of the recordings, almost all the recordings on this are from that original session. Jason had to do a drum part on 2 songs. But what you're hearing are our parts that after we had just gotten to the spot where we had written the song, where we go, well, I like this arrangement, and they go, we'd listen through it a couple times, put it down a couple times, go back in and go, it's dragging here. And then we come back and work on it. It was, it was like Red Bull and beers and pounding it out 5 hours, 6 hours. Maybe it was most of a day. And then we'd get something we liked and we'd be so fucking sick of it. We'd go, okay, it's fine, blah, blah, blah. I fucking hate that song. And then we go back. So we work probably like 2 to 7 on that, take a little break, go, well, you guys want to fuck with something? We go in there and you'd start working on something. And then the second one would fall out much quicker. You know what I mean? It was like somehow we had gotten through all of the issues of like whatever it was. Jason, our drummer, Jason Gerken's amazing drummer, incredible drummer. He's a drummer of drummers. But he doesn't like to play in 6/8 or in 3 because it's boring to him and everything sounds like a beer swinger. Da, 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 you know, and so either you can play like do da do da, you know, it's just like he feels it's very limiting. So he's always going out of his way to find a new way to play something in 3. And there's a couple songs on the record. In particular, I think the first one we worked on was Endless Summer, and he was mad about that. And we had a thing about that. And so this goes back to when it could have turned into a real blowout. It might have ended a rehearsal and everybody's, oh, fuck that guy, oh, you know, whatever. This was much more productive, and he would kind of spit and swear about it. And he goes, I don't want to, and he would kind of stew over it. And he goes, hang on. And he walked out there and he would play to himself and figure, he goes, come on, I think I got a beat. And then we'd replay it. And he goes, that's it. I got it. I go, we got it. Let's do this. And we go, press go, Paul. And Paul would go. He'd come in, pick up his bass and play. And we would get the track. Occasionally it would happen where Paul would think that he had pressed record. And he would come in and we would fucking knock it out. And it was not recording.
Oh, man. That would kill me.
He was so bummed. And Gerken was in particular, he was not having it on those. But it only happened a couple times, but it did happen.
That situation you run into where it's like, you know, we're not on the same page, or like how did it work for that song? I'm curious because, you know, I've run into this, other people have run into this. I'm curious about how other people handle it. Let's say you're working on that song, and what happens? Do you say like, I want this vibe, but the drummer's like, no, I don't like doing that. What about this? And you're like, no, that's not working. Like, is that what happened? And how do you like come to an agreement? Like, how do you get to that point where you're like, okay, this is where we're at. This will work.
It's a good question. You know, I think I learned to push, but not overly push. And I have to kind of let him work through it. And I could say, sometimes I'll let him twist and not kind of twist in the wind there and work through it. And I'll have an idea that might work, but he doesn't want to hear it right away. And it's also time for me to buzz out for a little while, you know, and let him work on it. That was also an issue with Asleep in the Trunk, the single, the first single, quote unquote, the first hit. And he was like, he was playing something that I was just not. It's a really open kind of spot in the verses. You know, there really are no drums, and he hadn't considered that. I mean, there's some like there's swells and fills, but he's not doing a beat. He's not dooch dooch do dot dooch do dooch dooch do dot. He's not doing that. It's like he's just out of the way, you know, and he's doing some builds and crescendos and then he does a fill into the chorus. But each of the verses, he really stays out of the fucking way. And it took a minute. I let him twist on it and figure and try to work it out for about a half hour. And then I stepped in and I said, here's what I asked him, I said, can I tell you what I'm hearing? And he goes, yes. And by that time, he wanted to hear it. You know what I mean? Like it took that long, really, I think. And I think it just takes patience and being grown up on both of our parts, you know? I mean, like, and the fact that he was willing to hear it from me and that I was willing to let him kind of work through it and not try to force it on him too soon. Because if I say, dude, get it with this on this tune, you don't play at all, you know? He's like, what? I'm just like, yeah, just go with me on this, dude. So here it is. You know, if I get too married to something while I'm writing it, then he'll be like, oh, okay, dude, you know. So it's better to let him come to these conclusions.
Yeah, and I think you have to try everything, and that's a good point. Like the timing, you don't want to open with, "Hey, I have an idea." You don't play at all, right? Like it's
It doesn't always go over well. Turns out.
no, and it just depends on the mood and the vibe and everything too. Because I don't know, if someone's telling me like, "Hey, do this thing exactly," like sometimes I might not care, and sometimes I might be like, "Well, no, like I don't want to."
I'm in. Let's just play it for me and let me do my thing. And I think we've earned each other's trust that way. And that's a beautiful thing. And Life and Times has too. We trust each other to kind of like do it. And if the other one's not, if somebody's not hearing it or feeling what the person's laying out there, then by all means lay it out, you know?
Yeah. So once you get, all right, so you come in with the idea, we hash out the arrangement. So would you finish the song in a day, or does it depend? Because I'm just thinking about like, oh no, we have limited time. We have 3 days together. We got to get a song done. Like, would you guys like get it done in a day?
Most of it. What we would do is we would get the arrangement. If I was going to be there for 3 days, we wanted to leave with 3 songs, whether they were good, bad, or ugly. And everything didn't get used. Actually, most shit did get used. We wrote 13 songs and we're using 12. And the other song is great. So it was a knockout. Anyway, we would make the arrangements a little padded to where, using technology, I knew that I could edit it down later into something. If I go, like when we were putting down the song, I had a vocal mic in front of me. I wasn't trying to scat or do my melody line. I would go, "This is the verse coming up here now," and so everyone would know. And I go, "Chorus." No. I go, "One more time." And I can do out kind of directives, and they're not just me directing; it's things we've agreed upon, you know. But it helps them know. Whereas, be the same thing as having a whiteboard in the studio where everybody goes, "Okay, A, B, C, A, B, C, D." Then there's the Y section. Why are we doing this section? We always have one of those sections. That's the Shiner trademark, is the Y section. But that's what way we do it. And we would make it, instead of feeling like we had to have it totally finished, the arrangement, we would still be getting really good tracks that were mostly used, almost all of them, that we were only added on to them. We would pad the arrangements a little bit, and that way we would cut them down. Once I started singing with them here at home, I could see, I don't need this whole last minute and a half, or I don't need this little chunk in the middle. I'll cut this down to 2 bits. I'll do an edit, and then I kind of hip them to it. But making those edits on the master tracks was also a little tricky, because you have to do that. I was only editing a little stereo file, right, that I was singing along to at home. So when we go back there, we had to make those moves on the master tracks. So it was a little tricky, but it worked out, and it's a good method. So what you're getting is a nice mix of using technology, but also standing in the goddamn room together and breathing the same air and working it out and writing a song together with 4 people. Word, you know what I'm saying? It's like it's impactful, and it works, and it's worked for us the past couple of times. We were doing the same thing with this 388, this Tascam 388 I have right over here. All the tracks from our early records were all done on there. The Egg, Starless, Luludvinia, they were all done on there, and we did extensive demos. Paul was also working in the studio. We did a lot of demos at West End Studios in Kansas City. And so we've always done that whole demo vibe. This was nice because we were able to, it was time to knock it out. You know, it's like when I'll make the analogy, like when 2 grown-up divorced people start going out and dating again, some people in their 40s or 50s, they say they start to go out and date again. They're not going to go out and just start that. You don't go on a million dates before you guys start banging. You just get straight into having sex that night. And then it just, you know what I'm saying? That's at least that's what I've heard. I'm a happily married man, but I understand that because the gestation period between dinner and then sleeping together is usually 3 or 4 hours. And so it's, which is a beautiful thing. It's ready to get on with it. is what I'm saying.
Yeah. What was I going to ask you? I forget. What software do you use now when you're playing with it at home?
Logic. I use Logic, and it's although Paul is he uses not Nuendo, but the updated version of that, and I'm drawing a blank on that. It's for PCs, and it's much more hands-on, and it'll come to me as soon as I get off this podcast. The name of it, God damn it. Anyway, but so we just kind of transfers to this. I like the user friendliness of Logic, and I happen to know it. Mainly that's the main thing. Is like all of them I think are pretty user friendly.
Reading about the lyrical content of the album, very personal record. We discuss aging, relationships, escapism, and I was reading through all the lyrics for the album, and I was like, "Oh no, is Alan okay?" Like it, I was like, "Is he still married?" It seemed like some stuff going on. Where do you pull from? Mm-hmm. What is going on? Give us some insight.
Well, I'll tell you. I had this exact same conversation with Ben Gibbard. Shiner got to tour with Death Cab for Cutie like 20 years ago or something for like the photo album or something. And there was one of those songs I was like, man, I was like, that's really heavy. And I was asking Nick about it. And he goes, he's just writing. It's not all biographical. And even though some of the characters are real in my work and some of that, it's usually not biographical. It's fiction. You know what I'm saying? And that's what the way Ben writes, it's fiction. It's not autobiographical, everything. There might be a piece of it that is, but I'm happily married, been married 26 years. But being married is this long journey together, right? And I'm not in any way bored. We're like, in fact, you work harder and to stay in that person's, and with that person, have them still love you kind of, in a way, not that they wouldn't or don't, but you still feel this. I still feel it. But I think I just kind of took a couple of themes there and ran with it. A couple of the songs aren't just kind of use snapshots, broken satellites, just this life of being together and just like little snapshots of our life throughout. And, but it's not supposed to be, this is the answer. This is what I'm saying. It's just little snapshots of it. Asleep in the Trunk is a extrapolation and a kind of darkly funny extrapolation of that feeling of, I was thinking that we're still in love. What's going on here? And, and she's in fact trying to get rid of him, we do a video where she puts the guy in the trunk and dumps him in the water with zip ties around his ankle.
That's the one where I read it and I was like, oh man, I hope everything's okay.
Yeah, that's it. It's just kind of comedic, and I've never written that way. I've never been as direct as I've learned to be, and I'm usually historically Life and Times and Shiner lyrics are intentionally obscured, extended metaphors and dark puzzles and riddles wrapped in gauze and reverb. And it's a little bit more open on some of this, although some of it's a little esoteric cool. Also, and I'm cool with that. I still write both ways. Some things it's a little more direct and deliberate and more, matter of fact. And then the other stuff is more metaphorical, and I'm okay kind of doing all of it, so, but there are a couple of themes in there in the record that, are personal, but mostly I would say it's an historical fiction. Let's think of it like that.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So Believe You Me was mixed and produced by Mario Quintero of Spotlights, yes?
It was. And Paul Malinowski is a big hand in the process also. So it was really Mario and Paul, but it was Mario there in the last bit there, getting the mixes at the level where they're at. And he was huge. He's the fifth member of the band. He toured with us when Josh Newton, our guitarist, couldn't play in 2022.
Oh, really?
Josh is a tech, for Kings of Leon and for Fall Out Boy and many bands. and he's busy. He's busy playing huge arenas and football stadiums all over the world, literally. I was like, where are you at, dude? What's going on? He was like, I'm in Moscow again, just looking, I'm Grubhubbing McDonald's, He's like, I was like, are you going into the square or whatever? You're going to go? He was like, I used to do that. I don't do that anymore. He just is like, he'd go to his fucking hotel room and he'll grub up Burger King, or Popeyes, and he'll pay 45 rubles for it and stay there and play guitar and video games.
Sounds like me. I like that.
Yeah, I like that also. And then he'll meet them at bus call the next day or whatever. But anyway, Josh is busy doing that. And when he was doing that, Mario filled in, and we were touring with Spotlights, and he is just an amazing musician, and he is the full deal package. He's a writer, incredible player, incredible drummer, bassist, singer, lyricist, and not only that, he's good on the tech side too. Like he's an incredible mixer, and he brought it full to it. If we let him do his whole thing, I think it would be a little bit slicker than how it was, than what it ended up being. Whereas I think we kept him on the little bit more organic sounding side of his sound, because Paul's sounds that the sounds that Paul Malinowski records are so good out of the box. You can really go faders up and you're going to get a pretty good fucking record. You would have to fuck it up. You'd have to add a bunch of bullshit, and then you're like, what is he doing? And then and too much EQ and reduction kind of bullshit that is unneeded. It's faders up for a Paul Malinowski mix. He's done a bunch of Life and Times. He's done a bunch of stuff with me, and he just his work is impeccable. And so this is what they started out working with. They did an initial session of mixing for about a week at Massive, Mario and Paul, and then it was time for him to go. They weren't done, so we let Mario take them back, and he was able to polish them up with all of us working on them and giving input as it went along. But it was an incredibly painstaking process, and we continued to every song was like, oh, we think we're gonna, needs to be, but you know how it goes. It's like, it's gonna be that, we want to do more records, but we're also very realistic. We're grown ass men, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, we may not get to do this because we're going out. We're going at it like that. You know what I mean? Like, with the idea that we want to make sure we're getting what we want out of this through the artwork, through the production of the record, and the shows we're going to be playing. So.
Yeah. Well, mission accomplished, and kudos to Paul and Mario, because I'm not a huge production guy. I demo, I can recognize good sounds. I know how to get the sound I want, but I can't engineer, record, mix. But when I heard Believe You Me, I was like, holy shit, like this sounds amazing.
Well, I appreciate it. And all that goes to Mario and Paul. And I mean, we have good sounds coming out of our instruments and drums, and that adds to it, honestly. But it really is that. And I feel very good that it doesn't sound more processed like a lot of current music. A lot of it sounds like plugins, I mean, a lot of it sounds like the stuff your software offers on everybody's DAW, and I don't want that. I do not want that. And some very great records from a lot of people are using these sounds and like they're not doing themselves any favors, by it homogenizes the sounds of the record. And I really feel like we avoided that. We made a hi-fi sounding record that is also organic, and sounds real. So I'm glad you heard it and it worked.
Yeah, that it does. And that's what I go for too. I still play through two very heavy 4x12s and a very heavy guitar head with a full pedal board and all that stuff. I'm not saying, I'm not saying I would never use the Helix board or plugins or any of that stuff. Haven't done it yet. Never say never, but I'm still doing it that way.
I love it. And I'm not afraid of technology. I would use a Helix. I would use one of those fractals, especially I have another 2-piece band called BirdHands that would be really important. I probably would still use cabinets with it, and use, use heads, but I would still, it would for that band, it would be really very useful, in fact, because it's a 2-piece band, just bass and drums. So
your solo record, Everything, came out in 2023. I read that you were influenced by Sea Change from Beck. Is that correct?
100%.
That's one of the all-time great records. And I heard it when I was still like deep listening to a lot of hardcore, post-hardcore, but I don't know how or why, but I just bought that record. And I remember just sitting in the car like frozen, like, wow, this is one of the best things I've ever heard.
Man, I cannot agree anymore. And the sound of that record, and that's Joey Warnker on drum kit for that whole record, and was helped part of the process, the recording process. And he's currently drumming with Oasis. And I got to meet Joey the other day because I went to the Oasis show, and we got some friends and family passes. But that record, the Beck record, that in fact is my Shiner breakup record. When Shiner broke up, you ever have those when you break up with a girl or whatever, and he's like, or your partner, and there's, you have that, whatever that record is for that time that kind of represents it. That was my breakup record, and it hit me really hard. So it took me 20 years to write something that was kind of like that, where I felt like I had the tools to write songs that were patient and like that kind of have that kind of vibe. And when I started writing, I wasn't, in some ways it was deliberate. In other ways I was writing an Elliott Smith kind of thing. I was trying to write an Elliott Smith kind of record, or there were some other influences, but I feel very strongly about it. I don't have any cringe moments on it. I love it top to bottom. And this is one of the ones where I was able to make all the decisions myself. I did have input and help, and there's one of my buddies from Blue Man. I played in the Blue Man group in the band for the past 15 years until we just closed in January of this year. So that has been a big sea change for me also. Sorry to have to use that, but it was too good. So that's been a big lifestyle change, and my change of income and having to deal with that. But this gentleman, Mike Burns, plays lap steel, and he changed how that record sounds. And it's really a beautiful, beautiful record that I feel very strongly about. And Spartan Records actually released that for me also.
Yeah, I love it. Wait, favorite track is the last one, The Lucid Dream. That's a good one.
Nice. Yeah. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. That actually it's a Life and Time song that we redid it as a kind of Elliott Smith extension, but I appreciate that. That's very cool.
When you're writing the solo record, is it hard for you to piece together the whole song? Did Mike have input and help you out with anything? Like, how was that process? Because I don't typically write a whole song top to bottom. I'm like you, where I bring a couple parts to the band and then we piece it together.
I see that. No, I didn't have anybody doing that. I was able to. These songs were different because I was recording on the first round of these recordings. I was doing the drums to a click, so I put them down myself. I was just recording them different ways, and I did some pretty good drums. I can play drums, but I'm not a drummer, if that makes sense. And I can make some good recordings that sound good enough. But these were all kind of recorded in different ways. So I was able to, the song started with a drum beat, and I would put down 2 or 3 different beats, and then I would edit them into something and kind of play to it. And I just kind of wrote something to each of them, whether it was on Rhodes or acoustic or bass, starting with it, and see where it led. It was pandemic. And so I had nothing but time to work on it every day. Although it started a little bit before the pandemic, but yeah, it was really that the pandemic is what allowed the whole thing to happen and get finished up. And it was all my kind of thought process through that. And it was beautifully mixed and produced by Dan Dixon, who's from Atlanta. He's in a band called Drop Sonic, and they're a fucking great band. And he is an incredible, kind of one of those Mario guys. He can do all of it. He's a great drummer, great singer player. He's got the whole vision, and he's good with the tech side of shit too. And if you don't know Drop Sonic, they're a badass band. They just put a record out, I think, on Spartan. So,
Oh, okay. I got to check that out. That's what when I'm editing these conversations, whenever people mention bands, I run over to YouTube and listen to all of them.
I love it.
Yeah. Third Gear Scratch, your podcast. Last episode was March of this year, yes?
It was.
So did you just not want to do it anymore? Did it run its course? What happened?
It ran its course. I wasn't inspired. And I needed to take a break just to reassess after I lost Blue Man. And quite honestly, it was also a certain amount of time that I couldn't be spending just doing prepping for guests and setting up, for this. It's that I'd never made money from it per se. And I never tried to have a Patreon. I never tried to turn it into a real monetary, monetization. And so I needed to take a break from it. I felt also like it was a little crowded. The market was a little crowded. I wasn't inspired. I felt a little bit of like a burden from it sometimes. I was 189, 190 episodes deep. I wanted to get to 200, but that seemed like a long way away, even at the pace I was working. And I still have PR agents hitting me up for people to come on. And I was like, I'm not doing it anymore. But so it wasn't really from a lack of guests, although that always presented a certain hurdle. I did have several great PR agents that were always sending me new things. And then it got around. So I would have that. And I had friends who were in the business who knew a lot of great people. And, so it's a really inspiring thing. The main thrust of the podcast was to cut through some bullshit and to say, like, can you believe we're really able to make music and do this? And like how are you doing this? What's going on? She's like, well, we didn't have kids and we do it like this. And, I live like this and, I don't make a lot of money, but it's like, we get to the nuts and bolts of how it happens. I don't want people to tell me their income or whatever. I'm not asking that, but I was like, let's real talk about how this is really happening. Can you fucking believe we're grown people able to make art and to do this? And, I feel like, and it actually it really helped me in a therapeutic way. I was in therapy for a few years. But this really was also very, very helpful for me. It was just the extension of like, what the hell have I been doing with my life kind of thing. It's a bit of a midlife vibe, but it's also extrapolated by being an artist, and being a working artist. So, it's exaggerated, I would say.
Yeah, that's I always related to that a lot, how it started for you and the kind of questions you ask. Stuff I'm interested in too, like how do you make it work? What do you do? I think that stuff is interesting and important to talk about. I always ask people, like, do you work multiple jobs? What other things do you do? Because I'm fascinated to know how people make it work. Before the podcast, I thought a lot of bands like just lived off the band, but most don't.
Most don't. I mean, some people do. Some it's a mix of both, because I do make money from making music, and there is an income from it, but it's not enough to live on. I also have a family and a house, and I live in Evanston, Illinois, and it's all, it's like there are certain things that need to be taken up. And also, I would say trying to make music your only income forces you to make artistic decisions that you might not want to make. Whereas if you can make your money from another way and from making music or making art and whatever, throwing pots or whatever your art is, you're going to get a more pure product because you're not diluting it with this kind of desperation of having to turn a buck. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, I mean, there are people who have had the luck, and like, had a record and they got this and that and went through it. And, but even then there's still some, there was downtimes for, let's say, Jeremy Enoch and the Sunny Day guys, I mean, after that, Jeremy's making it work, he's doing a solo artist, but he wasn't getting rich, but he's very forthright about that time. But all these guys, Dan Horner opened a club in Spokane, a Big Dipper. And, everybody's making it work, man. Will Goldsmith's giving lessons and playing on a lot of other records. And those guys, I use them as an example because they have had some huge success, and they've also been in near anonymity in a certain way where somebody would be like, 10 years ago, there was this band Real Estate, which is a great band, but people are like, I was like, oh, it reminds me of Sunny Day Real Estate. And they go, oh, I don't know. I don't know who that is. I'd be like, all right, how are you saying, or even now when I say, oh, I'm going to do I'm playing some shows with Sunny Day. Some people go like, oh my God, you're playing with Pearl Jam? Or, and other people go like, Sunny Day, what? I've never heard of that, and so it's this huge gulf. So they've experienced that and have had to face the realities of continue on. They're having a huge swell right now, which is amazing. And figuring out how to do that. And so I'm stoked to be a part of it,
Yeah.
So.
You mentioned the podcast thing. It does have good therapeutic value. There's been times where this podcast was literally the only thing I have. And I whenever I have a conversation here and it goes really well, I always get a real charge out of it. So it's good for that. And, but yeah, I do hit points where it's like, oh no, like not as many people are listening, or, hey, I'm still not making money from this. Hey, this takes up 90% of my week. Like, what am I doing? Even earlier this year, I was like, hey, I think I'm going to wind down and not do it as much anymore. But now I'm saying like, oh, I guess I'll still do it because now I have more time. I don't know. I go back and forth. So I get what you're saying. Like, would it take up a lot of your time? I spend all week putting together an episode. Would it be like that for you?
Yeah, and it would, because the main thing I didn't want to do was get into a situation where I didn't know what I was going to ask them, or didn't know about their past, or I seemed uninformed, because I'd had a couple conversations with people over the past years on podcasts and whatever, where people were like, you are highly prepared, and it's been a pleasure to chat with you. But like, there's a lot of people who are like, so, you got a band, and it's like, okay, dude, so I didn't want to be that guy,
right?
And I wanted to be able to connect with them, and so that's been a big deal. It is, I would say, I'm glad you're doing this, and you should do it as long as you want to. And if you don't want to, allow yourself not to. And that was kind of where I was at. I was like, there were sometimes I was like, I don't think I want to fucking do it this week. And then it would get away from me. And I didn't want to force myself into something that I didn't want to do. It was kind of self-care. And I stand by it, and if I want to come back to it, I still pay Libsyn, whatever I pay them every fucking month. And so if I want to come back and do an episode, I might. Or I might do a live episode at this place where I'm bartending, this Fitzgerald's place, which is amazing, and down in a Chicago suburb called Berwyn. And it's this legendary venue, and I'll do a live show there sometimes. I did it with Tim Casher.
You did one with Matt Talbot before, right?
I did one with Talby. I did. I had him down there. It was a week after Brian St. Pierre had passed. And it was like, I was like, hey, bud, let's not do this. Let's just put this off, and let's just reschedule. He was like, no, he said, the boss tells me I need to do this. And so he came down and did it. I mean, he and I are old stock. We've done hundreds of shows together, and we share some long, deep times together over the past, since 1995. We've been playing shows and hanging out 30 years, so we're old homies. Yeah. And speaking of that, Jason Gherkin, when Hum does play, Jason does play with them. Our drummer is also the drummer in Hum when that happens. And so whenever that does happen, and he got to play with them in 2019, I want to say 2020, and it was a big deal. It was really cool. So keep your eye out for that, and maybe that'll materialize.
Yes, I hope more happens there, because when they surprise dropped Inlet on all of us, that was a big deal.
Oh, it's huge. It's a great record. I had heard a couple little spots of it here and there, and it was always sounded unfinished. And it sounded like really cool, but like unfinished. We'd be at the studio and he would play snippets or whole songs. And, but it was hard to take the whole process until you hear vocals and you hear everything else. And, but yeah, what a great record. and was right there when Schadenfreude put it out, and they were there right at the same time. It was like pretty great. And I think we spurred them into it. They knew it had to happen. They were like, "Oh, these motherfuckers!" They did it.
Good year for music.
Oh, it was a great year.
Yeah.
Yep.
The Life and Times. What's going on? Is there new music in the works? What can you tell us?
That's a good question. Life and Times, we are in contact a lot, and we are all planning on doing things. We may be doing a retrospective of our catalog in the next year or two. We will be doing shows. I don't know how much we'll be touring per se. We'll probably just do one-offs or 2 or 3 offs, and try to like keep it more reasonable and not like a touring band. But I think it would be reasonable to think that we would be able to get, around several cities. If we go to LA, we'd probably fly out there and do San Diego, LA, and San Francisco and come home or something. Or if we go to San Francisco, or if we go to New York, probably fly out and do the same thing. We could drive around and do the regional circuit that we're good for, and down to Texas, whatever. But we're not trying to, and we're not in it to win it. We do have new music. We have an entire record that we could shape into what we left it at in 2019, 2020, because we were practicing in 2020, all breathing COVID on each other and shit in this like tiny little practice space. Where we'd go, have you seen anybody? He goes, I haven't seen anybody. And we were like, okay, you're clean. Who's in your pod? Who's in your pod? You remember that shit? And so we'd get into be like, okay, we're cool. We take our mask off and go rock in this hot ass little room at Johnny Drugan's studio. And so we have 12 or 13 songs. I think we'll probably end up keeping 6 or 7 of those tunes and reshaping them and then writing some more on it. But some of it's really long ass tunes. They're great. They're great songs. Life and Times was an easier vibe. There wasn't as much headbutting, although we learned to butt heads, but there's an easier, more sympathetic vibe to it. And so we could write really smoothly and very organically in the studio and kind of just like watch each other and kind of play. And like it was this really symbiotic moments that we had. And so we want to get back to that. Eric started a family and was our bass player, and bought a house down around St. Louis, and which I've been talking him out of. I've been trying to say, you don't want to go back down to St. Louis. Come on now. You don't want to go to St. Louis. You got to bring it back up to Chicago. Although I think he was able to buy a house for a lot less, and it's a hell of a house. So we miss each other. We love each other. I always stay with Eric when we're passing through there. I'll bring whatever band I'm playing with, staying there. He'll always come out. We hang out when he's in town. Chris Metcalf is doing very well. He's married to a beautiful Japanese woman who's very successful, and they live in Kansas City together. He's working at Scene Merchandise a lot, and he's got a new record himself. His band is called Lafayette. It's his old band, and they all reformed and made an amazing new record with Paul Malinowski, the Shiner bass player. So it's all in the family. It's all together. They made it at massive studios with Paul, and they're incredible sounds and songs. And you get to hear Chris play drums. And it's just, they have a really refreshing, not trying to win it sound. They're not trying to be they're not trying to sound like new gays and like the heaviest and like all this shit, and be, I mean, they just have a really honest sound of the guys who love making music together and standing in a room together and just doing it because they fucking love it. And it's really good. So Lafayette is the name of the band, and they're amazing. So
that's another one I got to check out.
Absolutely.
What's your setup for the Life and Times? Because I'm curious, because I'm in a 3-piece band, and my goal, it's a heavier band that's down-tuned a bit. So my goal is to fill up as much sound as possible, which I think we achieve okay. What are you working with in the Life and Times?
I use the high watt, and I use in Shiner. I use my high watt, and I use a Vox. But with the high watt, I use a 212, and the Vox is a 212. It's an AC30, and then I'll use whatever my pedals are, and I'm more effects driven for Life and Times than I am with Shiner. My board with Shiner is really a couple of gain pedals, a tuner, and a delay and a reverb. But I don't have the do it again pedal and all this other bullshit, and I really don't. It's very stripped down. This is the one I'm using for Sunny Day, but it won't be this pedal. So this one gives me more options, because that's my role that I'm filling in for that. With Life and Times, the way we fill space is by not really doubling each other's parts. We don't really play rhythm guitar parts. Eric has a loud enough sound and a more such a distinctive sound that he really is the meat of the song, the melody line and the riff. And then I'll put the like super high notes on, or, so it's more of like a piano line or something way up in the stratosphere. And Chris is with these rump shaking beats. So it's these kind of like, we're not trying to play each other's parts. If we come in together and play chords together, it does happen, but it's the exception and not the rule. So you're going to get impact that way when it comes together, but usually we're spread out and we're doing our different things on different parts of the sonic spectrum, so that I'll be doing something way high up on the neck with some delay and reverb on it. So it's like, and he's like, so we're not in each other's way, and we can, and each of our own tones is good enough to where we're not, it stands on its own. So that is how I try to fill space in a 3-piece. And that's the whole ethos. Kind of like the Police in a way. You know what I mean?
Right. Let me see. Is there anything I didn't ask you that I want to?
You've covered it. You've been very thorough, and I appreciate it. BirdHands, this band we're playing in Minneapolis. We put out a record a couple years ago that Jay Robbins from Jawbox and from Burning Airlines, he produced for us. Man, I'm connected to these like really talented guitarist guys who are also mixers. It's like, this is the mix.
Lucky.
It's either Mario Quintero, Jay Robbins, and Dan Dixon, but Jay's one of those super talented guitarists, singers, writers, can do everything, and he's also tech heavy. He's a badass. He can do it all. He mixed our record and made a really cool record in the vein. What we were shooting for was to make a kind of Trans Am record, if you're familiar with the band Trans Am. There's another band, Touring Machine, that was Jerry Fuchs from Chick 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 was in this band, and it's kind of really grooving, repetitive parts. And
Jerry Fuchs, I have to say, very tragic loss. Very tragic. I saw Maserati back in the day, and it was the first time I ever watched a band and just watched the drummer the whole time. It was mesmerizing.
That's Jerry.
Yeah.
That's Jerry.
Yep.
And so he had a band before that called Touring Machine, and that's TURING, not TOU. And they're incredible. And maybe they had 2 records, but that was the vibe. And Shiner used to listen to it. The old version of Shiner used to listen to it in the van all the time. And it's just this hypnotic grooving beats. And Life and Times touched on it in a couple of songs, but I wanted to make an instrumental record. And so my buddy Ian Prince from Minneapolis is an incredible drummer. He was originally from a band called Houston, and they're from Minneapolis, just to confuse everybody. And they put out a record recently, which is amazing. They promptly broke up after a fight, but they're an incredible band. He's played with many, many, many great people. And in fact, he's going out on a tour with Jason Blackmore from Molly McGuire, or Mario. He's going out with Mario Quintero and Jason Blackmore, and on the Sisters tour.
Oh, yes.
Sisters. Yeah. So, but anyway, so we love playing those BirdHands songs, and we're going to be playing in October, the end of October, after the Sunny Day shows. I have a show in Minneapolis with Jay Robbins. We're tying it all together. It's a tight incestuous circle of like, there's 12 of us, and we're all just like, it's what it is.
It's a good circle. It's a good circle to be in. It's a lot of people I've been listening to for a long time.
I love it. I love it.
I got to check out BirdHand for sure. That definitely sounds like something I would like. And listen, everybody who's listening to this, make sure you listen to and purchase Believe You Me. The new Shiner record's going to be out September 26th via Spartan Records. And the tour kicks off October 5th at the Casbah in San Diego. Yes?
It does. It does.
Yeah.
It does, lad.
So
we're excited.
I'm excited. I think I'll be at the New York show. So if I am, I'll come find you and say, hey, I'm the guy. And you'll be like, oh, hey, okay.
Let's go to Katz's right next door. Let's go get a $55 sandwich.
Now that sounds, I have not been there in a long time. You know what? People complain about the price and everything. I still think it's great. Do you?
It's amazing. The sandwich is so big that you cut it in half, you split it with a friend, it ends up being $20 each that you're going to pay anyways, that you would pay for a full sandwich anyway. So yeah, it's a little bit more, but you're in the middle of, it's worth it. You're in the middle of Manhattan. So, thank you for having me on this. This is amazing. This was a great conversation and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, Alan, thank you. Hey, I've been listening to you a long time. I love the new Shiner record. I love everything you're doing. So thanks for coming back.
Thank you so much. This was great. We did it. We blew it up. We tore it up.
And in 3 years, we're going to do it again.
Let's do it again. Maybe sooner. Maybe
all right,
sooner.
I hope so.
Even know that.
And there you have it. Alan Epley. Excellent conversation. Very, very glad that Alan came back on the show. Definitely one of my favorite people to talk to on the show. I mean, he's just so interesting. He's got so many great stories. And look at the output. I mean, look at everything he's done. Look at everything he's doing. Believe You Me from Shiner, definitely one of my favorite records of the year. I've already listened to it 2 or 3 times. We just listened to it again, coming back down from Massachusetts on our way home from playing a show. Really good stuff. And yeah, like I told Alan, my personal experience with his music, I had heard Shiner back in the day. I think The Egg, just some of that. But I really got a hold of his music through the Life and Times. I discovered them around 2008 or 9, and I've been a fan ever since. And then I kind of back-ended into more Shiner stuff. And with the release of Shiner's last 2 LPs, Schadenfreude and Believe You Me, I'm really hooked. I like them a lot. Great band. So if you're not familiar with Alan and his music, get to work. You've got a lot to do. Shiner, The Life and Times. Make sure you check out Alan's solo record, Everything, as well. That's really good. And I need to check out BirdHands. I didn't even know he was in another band. I can't keep up with all the great things that Alan is doing. But again, super interesting, personable guy. Thank you for the kind words about the show, Alan. And thank you for coming back on the show. We will do it again in less than 3 years. Okay, so the big news this past weekend, Ink and Dagger are reuniting for 3 shows on October 30th, October 31st, and November 1st at the First Unitarian Church in Philadelphia. Paint It Black are opening the October 30th show, Dead Guy are opening the October 31st show, and Soul Glow are opening the November 1st show. I'll be down there for all 3 of those. I want to cover them for the podcast, and I may be covering them for someone else too. We're going to see about that. No word on who the vocalist is yet, but more will be revealed. There's also a whole new line of LP reissues and new merch, courtesy of Trust Records. Head to their site to pick something up before it's gone. A lot of it is gone already. There's an incredible looking box set. I'm glad I got that before it sold out, and I'm very, very, very excited that this is happening because I didn't think we'd ever see anything from this band again. So awesome news. Besides that, it's business as usual here. My day job is going to be really annoying over the next 2 months, and I wish I did not have to be there anymore, but unfortunately, you need money to exist in this society. Memory Entry is hard at work on our debut LP. By the way, we're playing the Wood Shop on October 20th in Brooklyn. That's very likely going to be our last show of the year because we're focused on writing the LP, so make sure you come to that show. And I did have a chance to catch up on a lot of new music on our drive up to Massachusetts and back when we played last weekend, so here it is. Greet Death, Die in Love. I've listened to this record 3 or 4 times now, and I think it's a masterpiece. The last song on the record, Love Me When You Leave, oof, it guts me. Trauma Ray, Chameleon. Have you heard this? Have you heard this band? If you're a fan of bands like Hum, you've got to check it out. Incredible. Hundreds of AU, Life in Parallel. Incredible record and incredible production too. I think the production on this is perfect. Slow Crush, Thirst. If you're into heavy shoegaze, definitely check it out. I think it's their best record yet. Pygmy Lush, Totem. Pygmy Lush recorded this back in 2016 and it's been on the shelf since then, but they just released it, I think this past February, and it is a must listen. Dark, brooding, sometimes post-hardcore, sometimes heavier. It's hard to define, but I absolutely love it. Slow Mass, Low on Foot. This band got on my radar from Don DeVore from Ink and Dagger. He told me about them, and definitely check out Low on Foot. Great moments of shoegaze, great moments of post-hardcore, great lighter moments, an all-around fantastic record. And Dead Guy, Near Death Travel Services. Another record I've listened to probably 2 or 3 times now. And I just feel like I've always known these songs. I feel like it's like a modern classic. It just feels very familiar in the best way possible. Dead Guy have not lost a step at all. This is a very, very strong follow-up to this lineup's last record, Fixation on a Coworker. You've got to listen to it. And that is it for this week. I'm back next week with a new episode and a new guest. So I'll see you then.